All right, welcome. This is the WWW, the weekly Wellness Wednesday. We want to welcome the live participants as well as the individuals. If you're watching this recording or on live, we want to acknowledge the fact that you're stepping up and acting on your health, and for that we're grateful. And it's just an honor and a privilege to be here with you. And I'm joined by my co-host, my brother from another mother. We got Jim Rhodes coming at you from Hurricane, Utah. Welcome, Jim.
Thank you, Robert. I am excited about tonight's call and the wisdom and knowledge that he will share with anyone who has that athlete inside and really wants to let that athlete out and perform, no matter what age we are. What he's learned and can share with us is super valuable, especially if we apply it.
I agree totally. And this information, in case you're wondering, this information applies to anyone, any activity level. Can it specifically be applied to the endurance athletic endeavors? Heavens, yes. Although, again, this knowledge you can apply it to wherever you are in life and whatever your activity level is. So we want to welcome you. And just a little promo, we've done a number of these interviews for the past few months. Feel free to go into this, the Facebook group page that we're streaming onto, and you can simply search WWW, and there's a growing library of beautiful stories and powerful stories. So let's see, the guest tonight, I met this gentleman a number of years ago when I was getting back into a sport we call one of the silent sports. It's a lifelong sport, not always high visibility as it might when it comes to a lot of the Winter Olympics, but for some parts of the country and the world, it's in the fabric of their life, and it's cross country Nordic skiing as well as other endurance athletics. So I met Mike through that sport, and he instantly became a close friend. And I became a coach, a mentor as well, because I had been out of that sport for many years. And Mike and his awesome and beautiful wife, Jane, were just welcomed me and other skiers like me. And it was obvious very early on that this man has a passion for helping other people. And on top of the passion for helping others, he's very driven. He's more of an animal when it comes to aerobic endurance endeavors. And Mike, you hail from a beautiful part of the country, the Hayward, Cable, Wisconsin area. Can you tell us a little bit about your region of the country and what's special about it?
It's the upper Midwest. It's right next to Minneapolis, St. Paul, if that gives you some idea. We're about a 2.5 hour drive from there. We're just south of Lake Superior, which is the largest freshwater body of water in the world outside of Lake Baikal, which is over in Russia. It's primarily a rural wooded area. Logging is a very big industry here. We decided to retire in this area about 11 years ago, and we built a house on what's called the American Birkebeiner Ski Trail. So I can ski out my door onto the trail. It's sort of ideal for me. Some people live on a lake. I live on a trail.
Wow. How fun.
It is. Wow. It is a beautiful neck of the woods. Been to your home. It's beautiful. He lives in a beautiful log home there, in the forest, the wooded area of that area. So in the Northwood. So welcome, Mike. And tonight we're in for a special treat, my friends, because when Mike and I first met, obviously we connected, and there were some areas that I was able to support him with nutritionally, and then which helped, didn't it, Mike? And the nutritional system we were both sharing was a big support back then.
It was. It helped. It was my first experience really with fasting and nutritional supplementation, taking protein and protein drinks. It really, really helped a lot. That was my first experience with ever doing that. I stayed with that program about 5 years, I believe. And then I contacted Robert and I said, well, what's happening? And he told me Zalevo. So I switched over to Zalevo because I was not really satisfied with the way the other product was working. And the fasting for me with Zalevo using burn mode, I think some of you know what that is with eVibe. It's been a real game changer for me as far as controlling the things I need to control in order to perform better as an athlete and just to be healthier.
Yeah.
It's made life a lot easier.
And you speak that's the bottom line, isn't it? Jim, you and I were talking about this even on the pre-brief that you and I did. It's at the end of the day, it's about what works for our body, what works for our activity level, and it's about that inner outer health and wellness, isn't it, Jim?
It totally is. And you've really dialed, if I can use that word, into what it's doing for you. Obviously, you have taken good care of your body to be performing at this height. As we get older, we generally decline. We don't get better. And I don't want to spoil the end of this story, but that is very amazing. I have been teaching for a long time in the nutrition arena. We are what we eat. Those things we put in our mouth turn into our cells, which turn into our organs, glands in our body. So if we can put the good nutrition in, the body knows what to do with it, and it gives us back what you've found, your good health journey.
Mhm.
Yeah, amen. And Mike, I didn't mention this in the pre-brief that you and I did, but I'm chuckling at this. When I first met Mike and he started that nutritional system at the time, I even Googled you, Mike. And then at one point I saw an article, if I may go here for a second, in the article, Mike, I'm roughly quoting you, but it was along the lines of nutritional supplements in general are overpriced. You don't really need them, and eating healthy is fine. It was something along the lines of that. Can you comment on that? And then what opened you up to say, well, maybe I should take a second look at this?
I think there's a lot of supplements on the market, and some of it is charlatanism. I think it's a multi-billion-dollar industry. When you really research what works and what doesn't work, not much of it works. And I think what changed my mind is I looked at Zalevo and I saw the research that's been done on the ingredients that they have, what intermittent fasting does, ketosis and autophagy. It just made sense. There's a body of literature that supports it. And, I've tried just about everything out there, really, at one point or another. And this is one of the things that really, really works. That's the bottom line. The Zalevo products that I use and how I use them have worked. Other things don't always work.
Wow, good point. So if you have tried numerous different systems or nutritionals in the past, we can relate. So have I, so have Jim. So Mike can definitely relate. So just to go into this next phase of our conversation, let's guys, we're going to start this kind of a timeline, if you will. So we're talking back in June. You and I connected again, as we do periodically, and obviously you said, what's new? I introduced you to Zalevo, and you, at the point, you were still on the I'm assuming your base phase, and you were just starting to introduce maybe some speed work, but you're on the bike a lot, on the roller skis. Can you give us a little bit of insight into the first few weeks when you put this in your body? What did that look like?
Well, throughout, you break your year down when you train, and that was sort of the base building period. You're just getting back into it. You're getting your muscles and tendons working the right way. Usually do a lot of volume, and I'm usually coming out of a rest period where I put on a few pounds, and I was weighing about 209 pounds, not that it's that relevant. And I wanted to find a way to start trimming down. And so after talking to Robert, I actually started the program July 12th, and I did an 11-day program, 2 48-hour fasts within that 11-day period. And I dropped a lot of water weight, but I also shed some pounds, which was really, really good. And it immediately helped me ride with my friends. I started riding faster. I could do intervals better. it took until about August when I had shed close to 24 pounds from July to late August. And I think a lot of that has to do with calorie burn because I do a lot of 2-hour workouts, 3-hour workouts, 100-kilometer bike rides. So you do burn a lot of calories. It's hard to put all those calories back, but if you combine it with good nutrition like Ultra 30, which I did, I had Ultra 30 in the morning, Ultra 30 at noon. I drink some energy drinks while out on the bike too, to replenish electrolytes. So I think that immediate weight loss was really, really important. I noticed feeling better, but becoming faster at the things I did. It was just like, it was amazing. I think strength to weight ratio is really important in endurance sports, especially on a bicycle. And so I had that immediate positive response, and then I just continued it. And I worked all the way into September, October, where you start increasing intensity, doing intervals. I was doing 42-hour fasts. I found, and if I can share this with you, I found that Jean, excuse me, my wife is in the room. I apologize for the phone. Sorry about that.
You're fine.
Yeah, I found that doing the 42-hour fasts would dehydrate me somewhat badly. And so I had to adjust the amount of time that I was fasting. I found that I needed to have a little more Ultra 30 than is prescribed on the package. Robert had recommended at the onset that I do like 3 scoops of Ultra 30, and that was really, really helpful. I found out later in the season when I was competing and training a lot, I actually did 4 scoops of Ultra 30 just to replace the number of calories that I was burning during the training. So, and there was no weight gain with that at all. So I continued with the burn mode, using burn mode and eVibe. I think I got to the point, I went to, in November, I went out to British Columbia and trained in the mountains for a month, which altitude is always a good place to be. There's a response to altitude if you're a responder. It increases your red blood cells. When you come back to sea level, you have a performance boost if you respond. I was out there and I was finding that if I was trying to do a 42-hour fast, I wasn't recovering because I didn't factor in the effect of altitude. But after being at altitude for that, I started adjusting the timing of my fast and the amount of time. And I sort of came to the point where 36 hours seemed to be the best place for me to do a fast. It allowed me to, and then I did some research on it too, and they talked about that also as being a fairly reasonable place to stop a fast. If I had been doing a 60-hour fast, which I don't know if I can ever achieve that, I think I would have been too depleted to do 2 workouts a day, which I would go out in the morning and do an hour and a half, 2 hours, eat lunch, take a nap, and go out just before sunset and do another workout of about an hour, 45 minutes. So to have too many hours of fasting, too much time in ketosis or autophagy, even though I was teaching my body to burn fat, I think I would have been too depleted. And what I found is that 36 hours worked well.
And
Robert?
No, just to pause a moment, I want to make a note of something. So you came into your preseason getting on the snow already. You came into that state, that time frame, about 20 pounds lighter already.
Yeah, I started in July at 209, and I entered November at Silver Star at 184.5. So that was a really nice decrease and immediate performance benefit doing that.
And that was a point I wanted to make, because you were able to maximize that time at early on snow season, even more than if you were, again, just be raw here and real. So comparatively, even your pre-falls at Silver Star, which is, for those listening, talking about premier, Nordic skier heaven in British Columbia. But anyway, so how would you comparatively compare other Silver Star experiences, lightness, strength, recovery?
I went into Silver Star lighter than ever before as a result of Zalevo. Usually I would go to Silver Star and there's a weight loss that occurs when you're at altitude if you do that volume of training. And I would come out close to like 189, but I went in at 184.5. And it was really a boost to the whole training period to be there. So I had done the hard work before I got there. And then I had to figure out a way to adjust using the Zalevo products for my season.
Yeah.
And
So,
I
so
took all
from,
my Ultra 30 with me, of course. Yeah.
well, yeah. And so from Silver Star, getting on snow, now you're coming home from Canada. Now we're getting into your early season. You did a
Mhm.
couple races, Sisu and some other races.
Mhm.
So how did even that feel? What did that look like from a, listening to your body performance standpoint?
Um, there's a bit of recovery you have to go through when you come back from altitude. I did my first races in January. I believe there were 2 fasts between returning December and the early races, the middle of January. So I did 2 more fasts at 36 hours and using Ultra 30, along with a very normal diet, nothing too unusual. Yeah, my first races are always hard, but I had won my age group, which I do fairly regularly. It was sort of nice to do. A week later, I had a 30-kilometer race, and I did a fast on Sunday night into Tuesday. And then what I find is that after that, I have to hydrate. I took Monday off. I hydrated, and by 3 days from them, I usually replace the glycogen stores, because when you do a fast, I find that glycogen is depleted. You go into autophagy, you're somewhat dehydrated. So it'd be a 3-day to 4-day period before I felt really good again. And it happened that the race was on Sunday, and I had come out of that fast from Monday to Tuesday. It was almost like the old-fashioned carbo loading that we used to do. I was able to normalize my glycogen stores. So I had some fast twitch muscle fiber or firing of the muscles. So I did that race, and I made it into the elite wave at age 70, a 30-kilometer race, and I did about 2 hours and 20 minutes. So I found that I was really at a pretty good form in the last week of January.
And
And
then,
so, yeah.
and then from there, you're getting into your next phase of your competition season, which is you and Jane flew over to Europe at that point.
Europe.
Okay.
Yeah. We had entered some marathon races. Jane had to duck out of one because of a foot injury. It was the Marcialonga, which is in Cavallese, Italy, and then the Koenig Ludwiglauf, which is in Oberammergau, Germany. And so we went over early. Before I left, I did a fast, my weight down to right about 185 pounds, 186 right in there. And we left for 3 weeks in Europe. Now, the thing about traveling with product, it's really difficult. You need like a separate suitcase to carry all your Ultra 30 and all your cans and bags. So I made a conscious decision. I had the collagen. I was part of that study, and I had the collagen, collagen 300, I think it became called eventually.
Mhm.
And then I took my Biome Sync and my Bio Trim with me. And while I was there, I mean, we were staying in really, really nice places. We were at 4-star Michelin restaurants. We were at altitude once again, and Sizer Alm, I don't know if you know those areas in the Dolomites, but all I did during that 3-week period was use the Collagen 300 and the Biome Sync and the Biome Trim, and then stayed hydrated and ate normal, pretty healthy food. During the first 6 or 7 days, we were about 6,000 feet above sea level. I maintained my training. The following week, we went down to Cavallese, Italy, which is a little lower altitude, and I did a 45-kilometer race. I started way back because I didn't have a good start time, so I was in a way back. And I worked all the way to second in my age group in the 45K. And this was against all the international skiers, the Norwegians, the Finns. So I realized then that something was right. It was going well. And so I continued with the collagen, the Biome Sync. I think and I mean, hypothetically, and I'm sure it's borne out, the Biome Sync and the Biome Trim allows your gut to process the food you have and get the nutrition out of it rather than just passing through your system. So those 2 products, I think, helped me maximize my nutrition, even though I didn't have the Ultra 30. So it was, we raced on a Saturday. We went back up to altitude again, and then came back down, and we went to Germany to race. I entered that race. I figured I I was really tired because the other race was about 3 hours long. I didn't know if I recover enough, but I was in the 21K Classic. I raced that and won my age group. I moved from a second wave to the elite wave in my time. And I did an hour 15 for 21Ks, which for 70 years old is really, really good. And I realized at that point that this stuff has really, really worked well. We finished racing there and came back to the United States.
Hey,
And
Mike,
then
just
Go
if I
ahead.
may pause you for a moment, even in the Europe experience, you mentioned you were skiing some times that were comparative to what you were doing several decades ago,
Yeah, yeah,
which was that's kind of an eye opener.
yeah. And I think that the weight issue was really important because I had maintained my weight, and then I was getting nutrition out of the food I was eating. My gut was processing food better. And then I'm not sure what collagen does. I'm sure there's research being done on it right now. But at this point, I thought it was very, very helpful to me to have that collagen. And that was in the initial phase dosage. It's not the collagen 300 that we have right now. So I think it helped. It's anecdotal, of course, but yeah.
Well, yeah,
Jim?
I might just say what it is it's such a superior protein that builds muscle, ligaments, tendons, bones, everything a little stronger, and the endurance goes up because of the quality of the protein.
Mhm.
And you were, yeah, it has that effect on a lot of people to have their endurance enhanced when they add that to their diet.
and don't you know the science shows this already for those listening that the recovery process is what was vital to Mike's, because when you're doing that competitive season, you're going all out. A lot of things are, you're breaking down some stuff, but and then it's that whole it's how fast can you recover up to a high percent of fitness again, and that was one of the key factors, Mike. So okay, so you obviously had a really, I'm sure you were ecstatic about what was happening in your early races here. Now Europe, now you're coming back, about to ski the biggest race in North America. And so take us through what happened kind of the late, this is now like, I guess your latter season because you had the Berkey and then you did the bear chase, I'm assuming.
Mhm. No, I didn't, and I'll explain
Okay.
why. We came back, and the Berkey is the largest. It's like the race that everybody marks your progress by. So I had 2 weeks before the Berkey when I came back, and I immediately did a 42-hour, which 6-hour fast for me. I did that, and I continued my training. The week before the Berkey, I did a Sunday to Tuesday fast again. And then I started replenishing my glycogen stores, and I raced the Berkey. I went in at about 186 pounds, 187 because I was eating a lot before the race, and we had company and guests, that kind of thing. And I had a really good race. At 70, I classic skied into the elite wave of the Quartalopet, which is a 30-kilometer race, and won my age group 5-6 minutes ahead of anybody else.
Which is
And this
a huge, for those who don't know, that 5 or 6 minute ahead of your competitors, what at any age group is, Mike, you and I would all be ecstatic about finishing 5 seconds ahead of our next, much less 5 or 6 minutes.
Mhm.
So we're talking about a significant margin.
And what's sort of nice is the Quartalopet. It's the half race of the full Berkey, which is 55 Ks. And all the juniors, the 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20-year-olds, there's a U20 group, there's a junior group, they get to start ahead of us. And that's probably about 200 kids. And I raced all of them to finish 43rd overall, which at 70, that was sort of like, oh, this is okay. But I think it's a result of having reduced weight and the proper nutrition. I mean, Zalevo has helped me get there. So I did that race, got done with it. And what I did is I prolonged my season this year. And I had a month before my next 2 races. And Robert mentioned the bear chase, which was 2 weeks after the Berkey. I made a conscious decision that I would not do that race. I would train through that race instead, and then keep on the Zalevo program, doing my 36-hour fast and eating Ultra 30, controlling my weight, making sure I stayed in shape. And the snow started to disappear over that month. So then I went out to Silver Star. I took some Ultra 30 with me, and some burn mode, but I didn't use the burn mode. I was there for about 11 days. I wanted to acclimate before the 2 races on that weekend. They were 2 21K races. One was a classical diagonal stride race, which is a technique that we use. And the other is a skate race. There's about 300 meters of vertical that you have to climb at one point in the race. And I did the classic race, and I won my age group and finished 11th overall in the 21K, which for 70 that's good. And then the next day was a skate race, which is not my strength. It requires a lot of muscular strength, isometric muscle firing. I raced that. I climbed the hill. The fastest I'd ever done it before is 15 minutes. I did it in 13:03. I said all that. There's a Strava. Have you ever heard of Strava before? It's sort of measured. So there are these Strava segments. I blew all the 70 to 74-year-old Strava segments away. I'd never climbed skating that fast. The conditions were appropriate, but I did 2 races back to back based on the Zalevo program and the training and just the intelligent kind of things I do before a race. I was so happy, and I'm convinced that Zalevo was the major factor in all of this, along with many other things, of course. And I think I like to mention one thing. I did the other program with Robert, and we would do the fast, and I would get to about 20 hours and I'd get irritable, angry, miserable. And now I'll get to 24 hours and my wife says, "Are you fasting?" She doesn't notice because I don't have mood swings, because I think the product, the way it's developed, allows you to stay sort of stable mood-wise. I don't have the hangries. And so my wife really likes Zalevo burn mode because it keeps me much happier. I mean, I'm somewhat driven in my training and my exercise, but this has kept me very, very even when I'm going through a very disciplined fast and when I've entered into autophagy. So I think Zalevo has got it right with burn mode and e-vibe.
Yeah, and heaven, Jess, and we always happy wife, happy home, happy life, you know, and part of it too, Mike. I keep going back to that strength to weight ratio combined with the ability to enhance recovery. Don't you think that's kind of sums it up as far as what happened? Why was this season different for you? Would you add between the strength to weight ratio, recovering more rapidly, more efficiently? Is there any other key factors you think to sum this up as far as why?
There's a couple things, and I'll refer to the Zalevo product for this. Before I would train, I often would take 3 scoops of Zalevo, you know, an hour to 2 hours before I train, and then I'd go out and do my training. And I think I had more energy, I trained better. When I would finish, I would come and have 3 scoops of Zalevo for recovery. I used to do a really high carbo drink load afterward to replace glycogen, but I think the Ultra 30 was really good for recovering after any ski that I did of any endurance nature, where I've really, you know, I've sweat a lot or you know, burned a lot of calories. It was just a clean way to put protein back into my body and to preserve. There's several processes that go on at the muscular level, and this sort of preserved my muscle tissue, my muscle fiber, to use the Ultra 30. So I think that was significant. I also experimented with something a couple of times. Kirsty had said, try taking burn mode with e-vibe, you know, a half hour to an hour before you exercise. And I drink it in about 20 ounces of water. And I would do that. And it was amazing how good I felt during the exercise and doing that. So that's something else I tried. I did it in one race, but I mean, it's always hard to mix things and put things in your body before you race. So I didn't do it racing after that. But for training, it was a really nice boost for a long ride. And where you notice is when you get into it an hour and a half, you still have energy and you're still going on. And sometimes I'd carry a little bit on the bike with me when I was doing long bike rides. I mean, I drink a lot of water, a lot of liquid, and I'd have a little bit of the Burr mode and the E-Vibe in a separate bottle because it's hard to down that much liquid all at once before you go out and exercise.
Yeah, very true. And then we've already mentioned about the other factor, the key factor was that support in the gut, that those biomes are often overlooked, often not even talked about so much at the time, but I'm glad that we kind of really brought that point home, is that what happens in your gut determines everything your body's absorbing. And for the athlete, oh my goodness, it affects everything as far as how you're processing and recovering, and much less performing at the high level. So
I think that was the biggest revelation to me, is how the biomes worked when I was in Europe for 3 weeks. I think they helped me process. And we were eating really gourmet food, which is really rich in fats, and they have really fine proteins. Cheese is everywhere. I mean, I love cheese, especially European cheese, but I needed something to process that food. And I think my gut was much better as a result of taking those. I think that was the biggest revelation. And if I have only one thing to do, I'd be the collagen 300 and the biomes, but I like the Ultra 32 because of the protein and the clean food, the clean nature of the food.
Well, yeah, some great points we've made here. Thank you, Mike. Jim, any comments? I know we've covered that whole timeline. Any other comments around why this was so different from Mike this past season, which was, stellar?
Just, well, I think he summed it up by everything he just said here at the end. When you have good gut health, and those biomes really assist in that, and then the right forms and kinds of proteins, which make the amino acids, that's where amino acids come from, that fuel and rebuild muscles and give strength to everything else. That's just such a perfect thing for athletes, but it's a perfect thing for anyone who wants good health. We are, again, back to the fact, if you're eating a poor quality protein, and there's a lot out there, like chicken breast, you only get 50% of what the protein is in there. Your body can't even process that more than that. But when you're suddenly getting such a pack of it each time you take one of these superior products and the quality of them, you've got the best amino acid profile in the world in that Ultra 30 shake. And that's realistic. And the minerals, which we didn't cover, part of your need were the electrolytes. And there's 3 times the minerals in that Ultra 30 shake. Plus, there's minerals in almost every one of the other products at that same level. And suddenly your electrolytes are plentiful, no matter how hard you sweat. And your recovery from, rather than a big down and then try to recover, you don't drop as far.
Yeah, that's a great point. And Mike and I talked about electrolytes and the fact that there's these minerals, beautiful electrolytes throughout the whole line. We're going to pause right here. For those watching this live, there is a 30-second delay. So we're going to ask for you to pose any questions you have, knowing that we're going to need the 30 seconds for you to see what I'm saying right now. Anyway, so I know we have I want to honor those who took the time to be with us live, guys. So we have Carol, Debbie, Heidi, Dennis. Awesome. Good to see you guys here. We have, just a number of people. And part of it on these live streams, so much of we all live busy lives, and we get a lot of our people plugging in here to these interviews this evening, tonight, tomorrow, etc. And Mike, just so you know as well, we're taking these great little clips from these different interviews and creating some really cool tools that we can all use. So your story is so invaluable and impactful. And for those watching, Mike said he's a force of one or experiment of one, meaning we don't have a large number yet of athletes, and especially endurance athletes, that were so open as Mike was to saying, hey, I'm ready to be a guinea pig. Let's see what happens. And Mike, you were so beautiful at how let's just tweak this and tweak this. And you were so awesome in helping find your way to find what was your ideal way to fast, what was your ideal way to supplement, what was important and vital when you were traveling out of the country. And so while we're waiting for any questions to come in, any other closing comments? What would you tell somebody, whether they're in, first of all, 2 categories. What would you tell somebody who's not an endurance athlete why they should look at this. And then part two, what would you tell an endurance athlete who's looking at this?
I think health is really important. And I think about that a lot as I age, as I become, older and older. I think to maintain health, the research is in, and intermittent fasting does help. If you have any questions about it, I think there's some good guides in this label crew who can help you. But I think overall, if you want good health, I would look at intermittent fasting and look at the biomes and the collagen and the Ultra 30. I think that's what I would suggest for somebody who's not an athlete. It's just generally good health. There's an old saying that the skinny rats live longer than the fat rats. So not that you have to be skinny, but I think to reach a weight that's healthy for you, not some idealized weight, some idealized body type, but what makes you feel better. And I think these products will help you feel better.
And thank you. And for the endurance athlete, what would you tell them?
Man, you got to try it. There are some real benefits to be had. I guess when I compare prior performance to where I'm performing now, it's made a significant difference. It really has.
Well,
Give it
as
a
they
shot.
say, the proof is in the pudding. Look at what's happened this past year. And so any other closing thoughts, Jim, as well?
Yeah, I would like him to coach me so I can use the products better than I am. But at the same time, I'm the old man in the room here tonight. And it's music to my ears to find somebody who is so aware of his body to be able to adjust and utilize some products like these to make such a beautiful difference in your performance. And well said, everything you've said, I understand at maybe a little more at the cellular level, but truth is what Robert just said, you're a walking performance of what these products can do, and well done.
Well, thank you for your research and what you've done.
Yeah.
I really didn't know much about autophagy before now. And, ketosis and autophagy have become really a part of my lifestyle at this point. And I do think the stuff that happens at the cellular level is so important, especially in all walks, whether you're sedentary or otherwise. You've got to take care of those cells. And this is one way to do that.
Yeah, well said.
Totally agree.
And again, the VIP tonight is for those who are showing up, watching this, ready to learn, grow, and evolve. And Mike, we appreciate you, respect the journey you're on, and you've been such a role model for me and so many other people, not just in the sport that we love and share, but also in life in general. So thank you. And Jim, I love and light to you. I just appreciate you so much. And it's an honor to be on this journey with you. And if you're watching this, again, we applaud you. And just thanks for showing up tonight. So we always end every call with kind of calling out the fact that we are a force for good in the world around us. So we just call it out together. So 1, 2, and 3. Force
for good.
Thanks,
For
everybody.
good.
Thanks for
You
joining
are
us.
a force for good.
Thank you, Mike.
You're
Appreciate you.
a marvel. Thank you for being here tonight. Thank you, Robert.
You bet.
Good night,
God bless.
everyone.
Good night, everybody. Night, Mike.
Good night, Bob.